Good morning and welcome to the Stahls TV Morning Show. I'm Josh.
And I'm Zach.
And we're brothers.
We are, and we have been all of our lives.
All of our lives, and we'll continue to be, I guess. But welcome to the morning show. We have an exciting episode for you. As always, we're broadcasting live here from Stahls TV. I've been off of the morning show for a little bit, just traveling and doing a lot of different things here around Stahls.
We've missed you.
Yeah, I've missed being on, to be honest. I always enjoy being live on air, so it's something I'm going to continue to do a lot more of. But we have a good show topic today. It was one topic that I recommended that we present, which is why I think I got scheduled onto the show.
Probably right.
Which is winning the war on price, overcoming price pressure. Because through our travels at trade shows, whether that's talking with clients there or visiting customer shops, one thing is consistent across nearly every customer is how do I calculate cost? How do I price stuff, and how do I make money in the heat printing business? Obviously, we're all in business to make money, so it's important to understand how to overcome price pressure when there is that, and so we're going to give you some real-life tips on how to do that a little bit later in today's show. But first off, we want to start with Look of the Week, and our Look of the Week this week is from Kelly Voss from Hays, Kansas. This was submitted on our Facebook page, Stahls All Things Heat Printing. Talk a little bit about this look for us.
Sure. It is made out of CAD-CUT fashion film, and I think we're looking at Vegas gold and rose gold as the colors here. So they're combined, two-color application. One of the nice things about fashion film we've talked about before is you can do that 2-second tack for the first color and the full application for the second. But what we really like about this look isn't even necessarily the two-color finish, but the staging for the photograph.
Yeah, I think staging is an important element when displaying products. I can assume this was shared out on Kelly's business Facebook page or perhaps on her website, but it's a great way to showcase just doing something slightly different. In this case, adding a little bit of greenery and putting the shirt on a slant makes for a nice staged visual piece when you're scrolling through the feed that kind of jumps out versus just a basic t-shirt picture.
And shirts for teachers in general, I think, are a hot market right now with all the things that have been happening in the country with strikes and protests and getting raises for those folks who take care of our kids pretty much every day.
Yeah, Teacher Appreciation Week, I believe, is next week. So it might be an opportune time to start taking advantage of some of that. I also like that the state outline was used. And we launched a product called CAD-CUT Templates, which is basically an online designer to order heat transfer vinyl already cut and weeded, ready to apply. And we have all of those state outlines in that CAD-CUT template software, which can be found on stahls.com. So it's a real nice way to order prints that are ready to just be heat applied, that you don't have to do any weeding at all. So nice
look at that. Kelly is actually here and commented for us. She says white fashion film and rose gold.
That threw me off too on the background. Okay, cool. So white fashion film and rose gold. Rose gold is a new color in our fashion film lineup. The thing I love about it is it's the same exact price as all the basic colors. We don't charge more for the metallic rose gold, and it's a really hot finish last year and into this year as well.
So if you want to learn how to, well, one, if you want to submit for the Look of the Week, you can do that 3 different ways. You can email us 2 ways. Oh,
We've reduced it.
We're reducing things. It's great. We're going to talk more about reductions and making things simpler here in a minute, too. So 2 ways. Submit to Stahls Show and Tell, which happens on the weekend at the Stahls Facebook page. And you can also email us. Is that right?
Nope. Tag us on Instagram.
Daggone it. Forget emailing us.
Tag us on Instagram at Stahls Heat Printing as a way to share those. We've kind of done away with the email because we weren't getting many submissions that way. Most of them were coming through Facebook or Instagram. So we've kept it simpler, one less line to say moving forward.
Okay. Good to know now.
So speaking of one less thing to do moving forward, we've made some consolidation decisions here at Stahls that we want to make sure we update you on. If you haven't seen the emails come out, we'll be bringing our Imprintables Warehouse business unit fully into the Stahls business unit, which means we get to welcome back Zach here at Stahls. He went over to Imprintables Warehouse for a time, and also the entire team from Imprintables Warehouse will be coming over onto staff with Stahls. That website will continue to run for a couple more months, but we've emailed all of the Imprintables customers and said, head on over to Stahls. We've launched a lot of the products from Imprintables Warehouse, made them available to you, so you can check out, you can purchase from one place, have all of your purchases go towards our customer loyalty discount. So a lot of positives, and we get to put more energy into everything we do by joining the groups, by having one website, doing all those things moving forward. So we're excited about that. We hope you are too. So we have people watching all over the world right now. We have Melanie attending from Germany. So we appreciate you attending with us today. We have feel free to shout out. I know that we had some folks that attended from the DAX Chicago recently that are on. So we did some education work at the DAX show in Chicago over the weekend, which was great to see all of you. I know Jenna was there, Chad, Elvira, and Mark. So you probably got to speak with one of those folks from Arizona. So all over the country and all over the world, really. And speaking of all over the country, we have Workshop Wednesdays is something that we've been executing now for a few months. This brings education into our showrooms across the country. So we have the next one coming up. If you own a Roland GS24, or even if you're thinking about purchasing a vinyl cutter, the Roland GS24 is a great unit. We'll be doing a boot camp. It's the same class at all 5 locations, actually. So the graphic shows Texas, Corona, California, Arizona, and Florida. And we've added Michigan. At our headquarters there is a location for all of our Workshop Wednesday schedules for the remainder of this year. So if you want to sign up, it's very inexpensive to attend. I think it's like $30 or just short of $30 to attend, and you get to spend 3 hours with one of our trained Stahls educators and learn how to use that cutter and the different applications for it.
So do you want to talk about the main topic?
Yeah, I'd like to get to the main topic.
Okay.
And the main topic is winning the war on price, overcoming price pressure. And I mentioned earlier in the front of the show that this is one of the most challenging things for apparel decorators. We usually focus on the calculating cost method. So a prerequisite to pricing products is truly understanding your cost. Because one of the big things I saw, a company did a study on 2 different businesses. We'll just call them Company A, Company B. Okay. That both sold $500,000 or whatever the number is in revenue in the same period. And they showed an emoji of a smiley face with business owner A and a frowny face or an angry face with business owner B. And the reason why is business owner A made $250,000 in revenue on that $500,000 in sales. Not revenue, I'm sorry, profit on that $500,000 in sales. Whereas business owner B was actually negative $4,000 on the same top line revenue and sales. So I think it's a good example that top line revenue isn't always a good measure of success in business, because obviously cash flow is king, and if you're not understanding your costs fully and then pricing your products to make money, you won't be in business very long.
Right, and if you, when you're talking about that, it reminds me of watching the show Shark Tank when they have those people who own businesses that they're thinking about investing in, and one of the main things they ask is, what do you have in sales? And then after that, what was your take-home profit? And it's surprising when you hear some of these $5, $10 million companies are only taking home $100,000 profit at the end of the year. And it makes me question, is the work really worth it?
Yeah, are the late nights really worth it? Is the stress really worth it? And that's an important question for a business. So one of the ways to be able to take more money home at the end of the year is to overcome price pressure. And I think we want to start all the way in front of this in the business planning side of it, because when you start to think about offering decorated apparel or team uniforms, whatever the market is that you're going to serve, the products that you're going to decorate, it all starts with the customer. And so if you just say, I want to print t-shirts and I spend all this energy focused on how do I do it, what equipment do I buy, none of that really should come into play until you start to understand, who am I going to sell to? Who is going to buy the product? And so the best way to overcome price pressure is to be intentional about who you want to sell to. Because the reality is, if I know my customer specifically, I know what their pain points are, I know what the value creators are and what they value as part of buying logoed apparel or whatever it may be, then I can start to invest in the technology, source the blank apparel, source the finishes, craft the garments, craft the offer in a way that's going to be very relevant to that particular customer type. So I think that getting away from the one-size-fits-all mentality when it comes to we sell t-shirts is an important thing to make sure that you can generate the profit and have less price pressure to overcome, really.
So what are, do you think, some of those markets that people can focus on, or right now, where are we seeing the most success for our customers, and what markets are they selling to and being successful?
So before I answer that question, I want to share a fun fact with the viewers, because I think a little bit of behind the scenes is fun here. So Zach is notorious for these questions. We practice the morning show about a half hour before we air. Yeah. And many hosts don't even want to come on air with Zach because he tosses up questions like that on the spot, getting you to respond. I'm personally comfortable with it.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of fun.
Which is why I ask you.
But it's kind of funny that, that you do that. Yeah. So I think that right now we're seeing a lot of growth, of course, in the spiritware segment. That's pretty broad, so I would say in the fundraising segment of spiritware seems to be something that's extremely relevant right now. I'm coming off dance recital week for my daughter.
Me too.
Yeah, right?
You were way more involved, but yeah.
So the dance schools and dance studios certainly is an area that I'm familiar with, and I know that if you match a look that that stands out, really is what it comes down to, whether that's for the dance mom, dad, or the dancer themselves, or the studio owner, then it tends to sell well. If you couple that look that stands out with a way for the dance studio owner to make money as far as selling it, to deliver some money back to the studio, then I think really you start to buy in, and they start to guide you through the process, help you advertise, promote, and they really want to sell the product. So I would say that spiritware market, whether that's for a dance studio, whether you do a similar type of thing for an elementary school or a church, something like that, I would say that's definitely a good place to focus your energy on. Team sports tends to be pretty darn competitive.
I was actually going to comment on that when you were finished talking about dance, where one of the shops that I had the opportunity to visit last week, we kind of walked through the shop, saw what they were doing, lots of screen print happening, lots of embroidery happening, actually very successful at contract work for screen print and embroidery. And when we got to the heat printing side, I said, where are you selling heat printing? And they mentioned a few markets, the dance schools, the fundraising. They're starting to decorate on medical apparel like scrubs for nurses and doctors and stuff like that. And I said, what about team uniforms? And they were like, no, don't touch it. And I said, you're going to have to explain that to me, because we kind of specialize there with names and numbers, and we have a lot of successful customers that live in that space. And they basically said that it is so price competitive that they didn't feel like they could make money off of it, so they just avoid the topic altogether.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have two comments to that, because it's not for every business. I think it's they know who they are. They've chosen to specialize somewhere, and I think that says a lot about a business and their strategy. Some businesses specialize in team sports exclusively, and I think the ones that do that tend to do a better job even when they specialize within team sports.
Right.
So rather than we do team uniforms and it's a big blanket statement and we do all types of uniforms, you may do that, but saying we do volleyball and getting very specific about doing volleyball, packaging stuff in the right way, making sure the finishes and the garments, and you're the absolute best you can be at doing volleyball. Or we do soccer. Because there's little intricacies to each, and I think it's almost more in how you target, how you market, and how you bundle and present that offer is equally important as to what you're actually decorating. And so I think specialization in any avenue, in any market, is going to be helpful. And the shops that I talk to often price their team uniform business as a break even or a cost of doing business, and then they talk about the spiritware as the big revenue generator, saying there's 10 fans in the stands for every one player on the field, just as an average number. So those are a couple of the different markets. I don't want to get too far down those rabbit holes, but I think the important thing is understanding who you're selling to, having a targeted offer. That way it's going to be relevant to them, and you can match your marketing and sales strategy and command a higher price. So right product, right client is the first tip in overcoming price pressure or not even having it. The next tip I have that I want to discuss further, and feel free to ask questions if you have any questions coming in here. Some things that aren't necessarily relevant to this show, so we'll make sure we jump back to those at the end here. Think about unique value is my next point.
Okay.
So
I'm thinking about it.
Okay, so you're thinking about it. I recently read a book called The Challenger Sale, which I love, and it talks about unique value, and it talks to leading to a place where you're different. And having something different about your business is the first thing that you have to have unique value. So think about all the shops in your neighborhood or in the online space on Etsy or wherever you're selling, and thinking about what's their offer and how is my offer different. And if you have a hard time answering that question, then you really need to challenge yourself or have somebody that's not so in the business look at it and be able to challenge you on that be able to cross stuff off your list, being innovative or customer focused. Those really aren't unique value items that are going to truly generate something for the client unless you can have those translate. But leading to those areas of unique value will have you see a lot less price pressure.
Right.
You have anything to add on that?
I don't think so. I think you covered it. There was a book that we were challenged to read quite a few years ago now, Blue Water or Blue Ocean Strategy. Yeah. And they actually, the folks who wrote that book were talking about you don't want to get in the red ocean where all the sharks are because there's a lot of pressure in a number of different ways there, from price to production to whatever it is. And those guys, I was looking in the bookstore in the airport, they just followed up with another book on that. Didn't pick it up yet, but planning to do so because Blue Ocean Strategy changes the way that you think. It's getting into a space where nobody else is, to where price pressure effectively doesn't exist. I mean, obviously people aren't going to way overpay for a particular portion of your offer, but if you get in a place where there is no competition, you're pretty free to set the price at what it needs to be for you to make money.
Yeah, uncontested market spaces, I think how they refer to it in the book, but you're right, the easy space is where the most people are. So it's taking the time to plan and think differently to create that uncontested market space, and that does go back to the business planning element. So I'd want to go a little more tactical. We've talked a lot about sort of planning and stuff in front, but for those that are already selling products, already have a defined space, I have a couple just specific tactical things I want to share. And the first is delivering the price with confidence. So the price is $20. Something as simple as that in the way you deliver it.
Rather than the price is $20?
Or how would you think about $20?
Does that fit your budget?
Yeah. So, and you taught me this one, is understanding the budget up front is first critical to being able to match a specific product and price quote with that. So just asking a customer, what is your budget per item for this inquiry or for whatever you're going to purchase here is important. So delivering that the price is this is always a good one. We've often highlighted on this show, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time there on good, better, best. So knowing that if they're not comfortable with the price on that product, you have somewhere to fall back to is also important. And then I have, don't project your price insecurities on the customer. Just because it doesn't fit within your budget or you understand all the details of what your competitors offer product for, that doesn't necessarily mean that customer, that client is looking at a competitor. Perhaps they want to do business with you for other reasons, I would hope, and making sure not to translate those insecurities that you have about the price to the customer. Deliver it with confidence and let them respond. I always say deliver the price and then shut up, right?
Right.
And you got to wait for them to talk.
Well, if you've done a good job on the front end of communicating what your unique value is, price might not be an issue at all. So, as you're saying, deliver it confidently.
Okay, and then the last one I have, and I don't think this one can be overstated, is put it in print. So do you want to share your experience from the decorators that you visited?
Yeah, sure. So I've had the opportunity to visit quite a few decorators here over the past 4 to 6 weeks, and what we're finding, which we kind of, I want to say, already knew, but it's coming out very explicitly in conversations with these folks, is they have a price list. Like I'll say, oh, what do you charge for screen print? And they hand me a piece of paper with their price list on it or send me an email with it, or it's published on their website. Same thing with embroidery. They have a price per 1,000 stitches or however they handle their embroidery pricing. And I'll say, okay, what are we charging for heat printing? And then I get the awkward silence with, well, kind of depends on what they're looking for, or here's what we have. Do you think this is good? And it's not so much that they're not confident because they think we're the experts and should suggest to them. It's there isn't much standardized pricing for heat printing across the industry, at least that we've run into. Most shops we walk into don't have a printed price list of what heat printing is going to cost.
Yeah, so the takeaway from that is find ways you can standardize your heat print price list, at least for your business and the different types of heat printing you offer. Sure, there's a variety of ways to produce a logo and get it onto a shirt with a heat press, but if you can somehow simplify and then re-simplify and make it as easy as possible to be able to present a price, being able to quote in that moment, having something in print where you don't have to go back and say, well, let me figure that out to where it sounds like it's negotiable, I think is a big deal. The other thing that I have noted here is when a price objection does happen, think about trade-offs. So just making sure that a lower price isn't just for the sake of giving a lower price, but there are other parts of the offer with customizing apparel or decorating apparel that could potentially be a trade-off for a lower price. So I have a few real specific examples there. Something like quantity is something we can cover in the price grid. So, okay, you want a lower price? Here's how to get the lower price. Instead of ordering 35 shirts, you need to order 50 shirts. That's where the next break in our price grid is. Then I have an idea such as style, which kind of goes with the good, better, best. Like the price on this one is $20. If you need to save a little bit over that, I can place you into this style.
Move from the tri-blend to the 100% cotton tee.
Or this finish. So move from, maybe it's the metallic rose gold to just a standard product, whatever it might be, a glitter to a standard metallic rose gold. Making sure that there's a give and take and a compromise, because that really just means that you need to be not necessarily aggressive, but you need to be assertive and confident throughout the sales process so you're not getting bullied just for the sake of giving a lower price.
Yeah. I saw a question come up here from Windmill Apparel and Promotion. So are you saying we should not compete with other companies? And that was posted when we were talking about Blue Ocean strategy. I don't think we're saying that you don't compete with other companies. We're saying if you can find the core of your business in an uncontested space, it gives you a lot more opportunity to go out and compete on those other jobs and actually drive revenue way up while you're making the majority of your profit from this 50% of the business that you're specialized in.
Yeah, and just to make it simple, I'd say if you find yourself, not that you don't want to compete, but if you find yourself competing often and solely on price, odds are there's not enough unique value that's built into your offer, or you're not bringing in the client that matches the product in a little bit better way to where there's a better connection if you find yourself competing on price often. You'll have to make your own decision for your business whether you want to compete on price, but the biggest risk is you bring in a customer at this idea of a discount. I can think of large TV companies that do this, or cable companies that do this. You bring them in at this offer, and then every single job you're having to quote, they're expecting a lower price. So I think it's upfront in how you acquire a customer and the types of customers you acquire, that they truly value what you're delivering, and you're not just doing it having to compete with the $5 bid down the street, whatever that may be. There's definitely going to be times where you want to establish a pricing strategy where there's a loss leader. I know companies out there that sell $6 embroidered polos, and they do it specifically as a marketing expense to bring in new customers, and once they have them in, they'll continue to do those $6 polos, and it's their volume item, but they'll sell them into all these other products where they make their margin on the customer overall across products. Okay, so we've talked about things like right product, right client, thinking about unique value, when quoting, deliver with confidence, putting your pricing in print. When a price objection happens, think about trade-offs or other parts of the offer that can be a compromise. I'll add to that one, turn time often is a compromise, that you can say, if you can wait 5 days to get this instead of us turning it in 2 days, then sure, I can offer it at that price, and often it's not that important to customers because they need the product. And then the other thing I want to say here is solve only one objection. So you and I went through a training, I think it's been a couple years back now, Dale Carnegie training, that gave you specific tips to overcome any objection, but you never solved an objection until you got down to a singular objection. Do you remember how that workflow went?
Basically, it was asking the question in some form that's obviously polite to your customer. If we can solve the problem of price, are we ready to move forward with the order? Or if we can solve the problem of turn time, or whatever the problem happens to be, getting it down to that particular objection. So if we say, if we can solve the problem of price, we can move forward with the order today. If the answer is, well, no, then you need to start asking more questions. if price is really the issue at all, because price is an easy objection to throw up for anybody. If you quote me a price, I can easily say, is that the best you can do? Even though I might have no intention of ordering or have other concerns that haven't been addressed yet.
Right, and so when you ask that question, if we can solve the issue of price, can we move forward with today? And they say no, then you deliver, well, there must be something else holding you back.
Right.
What else can we address? And then basically you get to that singular objection. And then once you get to that and they say, yes, if we can solve the issue of price, we can move forward today. And there's important to put that timing element. That way you can actually translate it to an order and not output more cost in trying to manage the customer and additional quotes and conversations. Then the Carnegie training would suggest that you solve it through a good testimonial or a story, making the customer relate to another customer that had a challenge of price. You might say something like, if we can solve the issue of price, can we move forward today?
Yeah.
You would say yes.
Yeah. Good.
So I had another customer at one point that had a similar price objection. It was customer ABC. And what they actually found out is they convinced to give me one shot on producing the garment at the original price we had quoted. And what we found is after we produced that garment, not only did they find that the price was fair based on the quality they got and the longevity of the shirts that were worn, but they found that, you know, in follow-up orders, they were able to save on the total business by consolidating to one vendor. So coming up with that story, really a testimonial is even stronger. So if it can be a real life story, that's what you want on another customer that had a similar issue with price and why you're able to solve it for them and they're doing business with you moving forward. All right, that's a mouthful. That's a lot of stuff on overcoming price pressure. So hopefully you found some value in that. I want to read through some questions before we go over and do our Make It Monday here. Okay, good. So Aaron made the note, I try to offer two styles of shirts, a budget shirt and a premium shirt. Good. I think that's great when you can have two different, we call it good, better, best, so three different, but two different is enough as well. Sometimes to simplify choice, maybe just a better and a best is a good way to go. Lou asked, not understanding charging for heat printing, wouldn't that already be included in the price of the shirt? And so that's just a business decision with how you quote. Do you want to elaborate on that?
We can. So most of the charging that people would do separately to approach that type of business is 9 times out of 10 a contract business where the person who is coming to order already understands the different decorating methods. It's not necessarily the very end user who wouldn't necessarily care how you print the job. So if they know the type of printing that they want, whether it's a screen print, a heat print, embroidery, or whatever your finish is going to be, that's where those price lists are separated. Or you can also decide to offer that and sell the benefits of the production method that you prefer to use.
Okay, yeah, so it's just an all-in price offer. So lots of different ways to slice and dice it, and that's probably why there's so many questions. But hopefully today's episode gave you some real tips, not only in the business planning side of the business and crafting your offer and finding the right customer, but also in some tactical ways to overcome price objections. All right, with that, we're going to head over to the heat press for this morning's edition of Make It Monday. Okay, we're over at the heat press and we're going to talk about customizing team uniforms for this edition of Make It Monday. So one key thing about sort of pricing your products is controlling cost. And the most cost-effective way to name and number team uniforms is to order pre-cut numbers and to cut the name yourself. And so we're going to use some of those products today, and I want to start you with a baseline understanding of numbering and how pre-cut numbers work. And so for that, we're going to come over close to the heat press. We have a hockey jersey preloaded, and to save on some time here, live on air, I've already printed the other sleeve in the front of the jersey, and we're going to customize sleeve here is what you're looking at. We're working on our Hotronix Air Fusion heat press, and I have a 6-inch by 10-inch platen loaded. And so I've chosen to use this platen because it fits my numbers nicely. And pre-cut numbers come just like this, pre-cut, and you can lay them onto the garment. This is a background, so I'm going to show you how to do a 2-color number. Position it onto my press. Make sure everything's lined up straight. Then I'm going to cover it with a cover sheet. And heat apply. So I'm just going to tack the background number for a couple seconds to get it to temporarily stay. So on the Air Fusion, it's really simple. I just hit the 2 buttons to lock the press down and hit the 2 buttons again to open up the press if I just want to tack it. Then I'm going to grab my foreground numbers, and so we're working with Vegas Gold, and the numbers come in different pack sizes. And so in this case, I'm just going to separate the numbers from the other numbers in the pack, and then I'll line it straight up. And so if you think about this, when you're creating numbers, if I were to cut this myself on a vinyl cutter, while it's a pretty easy process, it does require me to design the number set, to lay it out in a graphic software, to send it to a vinyl cutter, to weed away the excess, and then to finally bring it over into heat apply. So I would argue that by ordering the pre-cut numbers, it's going to be a lot quicker to just do the layout on the garment when you calculate the total time needed to create that set and to print it. This particular material that I'm using is CAD-CUT thermofilm, which is our top material for numbering athletic jerseys regardless of the sport. It also has a dye blocking capability. So on a garment like this, where the red or the burgundy color may want to bleed through the print, the white's going to stay white and you're not going to have those challenges. So that's a very easy way. You can see I threaded that up through the neck of the hockey jersey. I've customized with the numbers on the sleeve, and then I'm going to change out my platen, and we're going to load the 16 by 20 to print the back numbers and the name. So I'll load that on. I'm going to start just by preheating this platen since it went on there cold. I always like to make sure the lower platen's warm when you're heat applying. So if you're booting up first application in the morning, always do a quick preheat on that lower platen to get it warmed up. I'm going to split the hockey jersey and thread it on. Threadability it's very important, because otherwise I would have this V-neck on the back of the jersey wanting to print through my name bar that I'm about to heat apply. Also, it allows me to get these seams off towards the edge of the press. Make sure my garment's loaded straight. Do a quick preheat. And then we're going to lay out our number sets. So just so you can see everything, I'll bring it into the screen. Important to remember, this is number 25, not 52. So that's the only thing you have to remember when you're doing pre-cuts, is make sure you lay everything down correctly. We have team numbering guides on the website that will point out for you the different sizes that are needed for each sport. Position this down, make sure I have enough room for my name bar, which I'll apply when I heat apply the second step. I just want to make sure we're good there. Yep. Pre-cuts, you have to use a cover sheet because you have to have a barrier between the thermofilm and the heater, otherwise it will stick. So it's very important to use the cover sheet. Just going to tack this background down for a couple seconds to get it into place. 330 degrees, 6 to 8 seconds is the thermofilm application. If you think about, especially when you start to get into big number sets, like this, there can be a lot of waste. And really where we find the waste is in between the numbers or between the number and the name. Usually there's a little bit of a gap space there. And that gap space creates a lot of square inches of material that really just goes into the garbage can when you're weeding away the excess. So by doing it this way, a single digit number roughly costs me about 35 cents depending on the size. in the name, if you were to cut this name yourself on your vinyl cutter, it costs you about 40 cents out of thermofilm for a 2 or 3 inch by 12.5, 13 inch name. So all in all, when you look at this, I'm customizing this fully back of the jersey, what you see here, for $1.40 for the numbering, plus 40 cents for the name. So you're looking at about $1.80 total. If you were to cut that on your vinyl cutter, you'd be looking somewhere around $4.50 to $5 to create that combination, calculating the waste and everything. And that's assuming you make good, efficient utilization of your material. Because often, as you know, material width comes 15 or 20 inches wide, and it's very easy to waste material on the side of the roll as well. And so the pre-cut numbers are a great way, most cost-effective way to do athletic and team numbering. And as you might have guessed, they're a part of Stahl's unique value. So there's the finished garment. It's going to be durable on there, the hockey jersey, and we've already customized the sleeves in the front of the uniform. So lots of potential applications in team sports. Thanks for joining this edition of Make It Monday.
I feel like we need to work on your placement a little bit.
My placement?
With the numbers. Yeah, we'll see. We'll inspect it later, but it wasn't too bad.
There are tools for that.
There are tools for that. We probably should have used them. It's okay.
I don't think so. You think it's off? I think it's good, actually. What do you think's wrong with it?
The sleeve, the 2 is above the 5. That's okay. No big deal. Anyway, thanks for joining us. When do we come back? 2 weeks?
Yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Because you changed stuff on me at the beginning of the show. I wasn't sure if you changed that as well. Yeah?
Yeah, right. 2 weeks. I'm inspecting this because I don't believe you.
Okay. All right. We will see you guys again in 2 weeks right here on Facebook Live. Thanks for joining us at the Stahls TV Morning Show.